The fireflower blooms for lips that speak longing true. Act 1. Whispers in the canopy. The jungle had been whispering to Andromeda for hours, low, shifting murmurs in the leaves, a pulse in the air that tugged her deeper along paths no map had drawn. Her boots sank into loam rich with the scent of rain, her fingers brushing aside vines slick with moonlight. And then she saw it. A clearing, bathed in silver. Suspended in its center, caught in an embrace of emerald vines, was a woman. Her gown shimmered faintly like dew on glass, and her dark hair spilled over her shoulders in ink-black waves. Her eyes were closed, but the air around her seemed charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. The vines cradling her pulsed faintly, alive, protective, and warning. Andromeda stepped forward, her breath hitching. The vines reacted instantly, tightening around the woman's waist, hissing like snakes tasting the air. She stilled, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. Her voice came low, steady, meant for the jungle itself. "I'm not here to take," she whispered. "I'm here to find." The leaves rustled, not from wind, but in response. A single vine loosened, brushing against her wrist like a cautious question. That's when the woman's eyes opened. Emerald, vivid and unblinking, locking onto her as though they'd known each other before the world was written. A shiver ran down Andromeda's spine, recognition, desire, danger, all tangled together. The vine sighed, retracting as though exhaling, and the jungle held its breath. The woman Colina reached through the green curtain, her fingers brushing Andromeda's. The contact was light, but it stole the strength from Andromeda's knees. The vines quivered, drawing back further, leaving them standing in a silence thick enough to drown in. "You heard me," Andromeda murmured, still caught in those eyes. Colina's lips curved, not quite a smile, more the promise of one. "The jungle heard you. I just listened harder." Something unspoken hung between them, dangerous and irresistible. Andromeda wanted to look away, to catch her breath, but every part of her knew this was the beginning. The vines parted completely, the moon spilling over them like blessing and dare combined. And as the first songbird began to sing, Andromeda stepped into the clearing, feeling that every step toward Colina was a step into a story that would devour her whole. Act 2. The Living Labyrinth. The jungle was alive. Not in the ordinary way, no. This was a breathing, watching, scheming sort of alive. The vines seemed to shift when they weren't looking, roots rising subtly to block certain paths, leaves shivering when either woman spoke too loud. Andromeda noticed first. "We've been walking in circles," she said, pausing to tilt her head at a cluster of glowing fungi. She swore they'd passed it twice. Colina crouched, running her fingers over the moss. "Not circles," she murmured. "Tests." The vines around them trembled in agreement. That night, the test came. They stumbled into a ring of thorns high, dense, their tips dripping with a silvery sap that hissed when it hit the ground. No way through. No way back. "It's sentient," Colina said, her gaze steady on Andromeda. "It knows us." A whisper threaded through the leaves, ancient and taunting, "Speak truth or bleed." Andromeda swallowed. The air was thick, close. The jungle wasn't asking for strategy, it was demanding honesty. Colina went first, her voice low. "I fear my power will hurt the ones I love." Her hands tightened around her skirts. "Sometimes. I think the vines were right to keep me locked away." The thorns quivered. A few retracted. Andromeda drew a breath, the truth bubbling up before she could cage it. "I've never felt truly seen." Until now. She held Colina's gaze as she said it, letting the words land between them like an uninvited confession. The thorns withdrew all at once, curling back into the soil with a sigh. They stepped forward, the path ahead lit by fireflies. Colina walked close enough for their shoulders to brush, the contact deliberate this time. "You handled that well," Colina said, her voice warmer now, richer. "You handle maps so well. Care to navigate my mysteries next?" Andromeda smirked, a flicker of heat in her eyes. "Only if you promise not to enchant me with those eyes again. I get lost enough without magic." Colina's smile was quicksilver, bright, dangerous, and gone just as fast. The labyrinth didn't stop with thorns. They crossed a bridge of vines that coiled tighter with every step, forcing them so close Andromeda could feel Colina's breath on her neck. They solved puzzles carved into bark, tracing ancient glyphs with their fingertips, while the jungle's hum seemed to sync with the rhythm of their heartbeats. Every challenge required them to move in unison, trust building in the spaces between danger and teasing. By the time they emerged from the labyrinth into the open glade beyond, the jungle had shifted in their favor. The air felt different, softer, warmer. And somewhere in the branches above, a songbird sang not for Dawn, but for them. Act 3. Symbols, Songbirds, and Spellbound Moments. The deeper they went, the less Andromeda trusted her map. It wasn't wrong, it was changing. New lines unfurled where there'd been blank parchment, twisting toward hidden clearings, forgotten stone paths, and shimmering pools. But the map never shifted for her alone. It moved only when Colina sang. The first time, it happened without warning. Colina's voice rose in a low, ancient verse, soft as breath against skin. The leaves overhead shivered, glowing spores drifted through the air, and the map in Andromeda's hands bloomed with fresh ink. "You're telling me this jungle sings for you," Andromeda murmured, half in awe, half in accusation. Colina's lips curved. "Maybe it just listens when I do." It led them to the mirror pool, its surface perfectly still, reflecting not the present, but memories. Colina knelt first, the water showing a child Andromeda, lost in a grand library, her small hands tracing maps she couldn't yet read. Andromeda crouched beside her, watching the pool shift to show Colina as a girl, spinning barefoot under moonlight, laughing in the company of fireflies. "You were happy," Andromeda said quietly. Colina didn't look away from the vision. "I still can be." From there, they found the whispering stones smooth, warm when held together, humming with a deep, steady resonance. The sound was a guide, drawing them toward the heart of Svetnica. But the jungle wasn't content with simple signs. It began to play its hand openly. Every time one thought of the other, a songbird nearby would start to sing a bright, insistent trill that had Andromeda smirking and Colina pretending not to notice. When they clasped hands beneath the canopy, a veil of emberlight cocooned them, making the rest of the world dissolve into a shimmer of firefly gold. It was during one of these stolen moments, half hidden in the light, that Colina murmured, "The map doesn't just follow places, it follows what you feel." Andromeda leaned in, close enough that the air between them hummed. "Then we'd better not lie to it." The moonlace blossoms bloomed whenever Colina stepped near, their silver petals revealing secret paths. Once, when Andromeda reached to tuck a blossom behind Colina's ear, her fingers lingered just a beat too long against her cheek. No one spoke about it. They didn't have to. Because every step forward felt like more than a journey, it was a courtship the jungle itself was orchestrating. And the air was thick with the promise that it wouldn't stay unspoken for long. Act 4. Temple of Memory and the Fireflower Test. The temple rose from the earth like a thought half forgotten, stone pillars wrapped in blooming vines, each rune glinting faintly as if warmed by memory. The air inside wasn't still, it was alive, warm and electric, humming like the pause before a confession. When Andromeda and Colina crossed the moss-soft threshold, the jungle's constant background song faded, replaced by whispers in the air. Not language, emotion, shaping the space around them. The walls shifted with touch. Andromeda brushed her fingers across a carving, and it bloomed into an image of her as a girl, staring up at constellations with hunger in her eyes. Colina pressed her palm to another, revealing herself laughing under moonlight, her gown catching light like water. It was here they found the spires of remembrance, crystal obelisks that projected not just memories, but desires. One flickered to life, showing them seated beneath a canopy of blossoms, foreheads touching, their fingers tangled together. Neither moved. The final chamber, the heart vault, waited with a stone pedestal etched in twin sigils. The air thickened as they approached. Only those bound by true connection could unlock its power. They hesitated, and then stepped forward together. Their joined touch ignited the runes in a cascade of glowing petals, filling the chamber with heat and light. It wasn't just ancient magic, they were unlocking each other. And that's when the Fireflower bloomed. It was a rare, coiled bud resting on a pedestal in the center of the room, its petals sealed tight. Kalina read the inscription aloud. The Fireflower blooms for lips that speak longing true. Her eyes lifted to Andromeda's, unreadable. Andromeda's mouth curved slowly. Guess we should see if the jungle thinks we're honest. Kalina stepped close enough for the heat of her body to curl through Andromeda's chest. She didn't look away as she whispered, "I want you to stay." The petals trembled. Andromeda leaned in, her voice low and rough. "I want you to want me too." The Fireflower gasped open in a burst of molten gold. Kalina's lips twitched into a smile, her hand brushing the back of Andromeda's. "Looks like the jungle believes us." They left the temple with more than answers, they carried a truth neither could unlearn. And as they stepped back into the dappled light of the canopy, the jungle's whispers had changed. No longer testing. No longer neutral. Now it was on their side. Act 5. The Sanctuary and the Revelation. They didn't hear Lucian approach, they felt him. The air chilled, the vines recoiled, and the jungle's songbirds fell silent all at once. Frost crept over bark and leaf like a living thing, each step he took draining the life from the ground. Andromeda grabbed Kalina's hand. "Run." The jungle responded instantly, fireflies rising in a wall of gold, blossoms closing tight to hide their light, roots tangling behind them to trip their pursuer. Lucian's shadows hissed, slipping between the trees, but the emberlight veil flared when they ducked beneath a fallen trunk, rendering them invisible in a shimmering cocoon. Kalina's breath warmed Andromeda's cheek. "Don't let go." "I couldn't if I tried." They burst into the roar of Shade Whisper Falls, the water silver under moonlight. Behind the curtain of rushing water lay a moss-lined cave lit with bioluminescent crystals, a pocket of air that smelled of earth and safety. They collapsed together, laughter breaking free between gasps of relief. Kalina leaned her head against Andromeda's shoulder. "You didn't even look back." Andromeda brushed damp curls from her cheek. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be lost." The falls veiled more than just water. On the far wall, Kalina's fingers found a pattern under the moss, two women carved beneath a canopy of blossoms, their joined hands surrounded by jungle spirits. Beneath the carving, an inscription glowed faintly. "When jungle and jewel find each other not by conquest, but by heart, the world shall reawaken." "It's us," Andromeda murmured. "Or who we were always meant to be," Kalina whispered. The prophecy was clear, Spetnica had been waiting for them. And then, the map changed again. When Andromeda unfolded it, a hidden portrait slipped free, Kalina's mother, the former queen, standing beside a woman who looked exactly like a younger Andromeda. "My grandmother," she breathed. Kalina's hand covered hers. "Then your path to me began generations ago. Two bloodlines, one to guide, one to sustain, meant to bridge worlds together." The vines that once bound Kalina hadn't been prison, they'd been a lullaby, holding space until a Waybinder's touch came in love, not conquest. The falls roared on, but between them, the silence was steady. Not empty, anchored. They weren't just lovers in the making. They were legacy, prophecy, and choice all tangled into one. Act 6. Balcony Promises and the Dawn of Purpose. The kingdom of Spetnica was stirring, vines uncoiling, lantern fruits glowing, old pathways breathing again. But the city wasn't the only one awakening. On a private balcony overlooking the reawakened streets, Kalina stood against the stone railing, hair tousled by the night wind, emerald gown draped like liquid forest. Below, the city hummed with soft music and fireflies, but her gaze was fixed on the stars, scattered petals against the ink-blue sky. Andromeda stepped from the shadows behind her, the map tucked beneath her arm. But her eyes weren't on the stars. They were on Kalina. "You're thinking of queens and prophecies," Kalina said without turning. "Or just avoiding talking about how that dream under the blossoms made you feel." Andromeda smirked, moving to stand beside her, shoulder brushing hers. "Might have been the map's fault. Pretty sure it charted a straight course into wanting you." Their silence wasn't awkward, it was thick, shimmering, charged. Colina's fingers grazed Andromeda's hand where it rested on the stone, and Andromeda flipped her palm upward, inviting. I never imagined I'd feel seen in a place so ancient, Andromeda whispered. You made it modern, Colina replied, her voice low and soft. Every glance, every rebellion. The vines on the balcony wall bloomed slowly, silver blossoms unfurling in rhythm with their heartbeats. The jungle itself leaned in, waiting. Andromeda's knuckles brushed along Colina's arm, light, patient, not asking, simply being. If I could bottle this moment, she murmured, I'd wear it close. Always yours. Colina turned, emerald eyes searching, finding no hesitation. She lifted Andromeda's hand, pressing her lips against it, a kiss soft, reverent, and electric all at once. You're not just a waykeeper, she whispered. You're the place I always want to return to. Andromeda leaned in until their foreheads touched, breath mingling like a shared secret. Promise me something, she whispered. Anything. When the maps blur, when the path is chaos, be my center. Still shining. Still choosing me. Colina pressed her palm to Andromeda's chest, right over her heart. Only if you promise to get lost sometimes. So, I can find you. The moonlight curled over them, sealing their vow without crown, decree, or witness, just lips brushing, fingers twined, and the kind of silence that felt holy. Below, Svetnica stirred fully awake, markets blooming with light, old songs weaving through new voices, children chasing ember moths across lantern-lit streets. Above, on the balcony, two women chose love not as accident, not as prophecy, but as architecture. And that choice, brave, burning, and theirs, was enough to keep the kingdom breathing. Enough to wake the world. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and like this video and follow me for more stories. You are always welcome here, and leave me a comment or a thumbs up, just letting me know if you like the story and would like more, or is there perhaps an idea that you would like to share or let me write for you.